All right, ladies and gentlemen. Today, I'd like to discuss with you possession. And no, I'm not talking about the gathering of stuff. I'm actually talking about spiritual possession. Okay. There are many types of spiritual possession that is out there today and have been around for centuries. The more common and more notable in the world today is the Judo Christian Society's aspects and details of demonic possession, where a soul or a being is taken over forcefully, much in the same way as Legion. Now, what's interesting to note here is that Christianity is not the only ones who talk about spiritual possession or demonic possession. They are not the only ones to claim that it occurs. They just are the first to announce that they are the most powerful beings and that they have authority over any being because their God says so. But when we look at other religions and we look at other philosophies, such as voodooism, voodooism dealing with the Loa is a way for you to become spiritually possessed if you want to. Even through curses, you can become cursed, much in the same way as in a cursed object or having a spirit attached onto you through a hex or a curse. And Quimbanda, Ambanda, Palo Mayambi, even Santeria speak on spiritual possession, where a spirit enters your body because you open yourself up to them and you allow them to come into you. And what's interesting to note about this particular type of possession is it's voluntary. Okay. This is where the practitioner or the acolyte allows themselves and is willing to be taken over, to have that knowledge and to share that spiritual connectedness with the spirit itself, to have the words coming out through your mouth even though it's not you speaking it. Okay. And what's interesting here is when we look at it from a left hand path to a right hand path viewpoint, what is good and what is not? Well, this can be traced back to the Greek definition of angels and demons. It is known as the daemon. The daemon is a being that is beneficial to a practitioner, to the human. They're safe. They're able to be worked with. Whereas the cocoa daemon is considered to be baneful, harmful to the practitioner or to the human being that is working with them. And a lot of people do not realize that this is nothing more than common sense. There are spirits out there that are only seeking to cause disruptions in harmful areas, such as getting people to commit suicide or whatever. This is something that's been around a while. But for the most part, most of these spirits, most of these entities, be it the jinn, be it the demons, the angels, the fallen angels, celestial gods and goddesses, when they manifest themselves through you, it's an honor because they trust you, and to have your trust in them, it is mutually beneficial. Now, certain practitioners in Africa believe that to have a spirit manifest through you is a great honor. It is one of those type of rituals that if you cannot become spiritually possessed, it is not satisfactory. There is no gratification in it because it means that you have not mastered the spiritual evocation or invocation aspects. Now, in other videos, I've discussed, the difference between an evocation and an invocation. Now, evocation is where you summon the being into yourself. And through rituals, this is known as a state of possession. Okay. Now, I'm going to give you a couple of sources, before I begin. This one here is the Encyclopedia of Witchcraft and Demonology, and it's by Russell Hope Ribbons. Very good book. He's got several pages just dedicated to possession, along with other things. Demons and Demonology, the Encyclopedia thereof, by Rosemary Ellen Gulley. Witches in Wicca and Witchcraft, which is an encyclopedia as well, by the same author, Rosemary Ellen Gulley. Now, these three books that I just showed off, these three encyclopedias, they give a limited viewpoint of possession. They show the signs, the symbols, and what can occur at 4 different states of manifestation. But they also give some history background on possession where, let's just say, for example, I'll utilize the nuns of Loudun, okay? The spiritual manifestation of the demonic activity that occurred in that church back in, what was it, the 17th century, I think? And it's kind of interesting because it's not just there that speaks of this. But today, it is more based off psychology, okay? Psychology is the state of mind that you're in. Is it an actual manifestation? Or is it your own subconscious? Because you believe it's happening. You see, there are 2 different things. And this is why certain priests or a faction of the Catholic Church has what is called exorcists. But it's not just the church that deals with exorcists. When you have practitioners such as witches, warlocks, sorcerers, say, for example, pagans, Wiccans, people who have been trained in the art of exorcism, can perform these safely because they've been trained. But in fact, anybody who knows what to do can do it. You can get the Book of Exorcism right off Google, Amazon.com, eBay.com even. And yes, for the record, I do have that book. But, and no, I'm not going to share it with you if that's what you're thinking. But Maximilian Schele de Very has a book. It's more like a pamphlet, and it's called Demonic Possession: Understanding the Phenomena of Evil Possession of the Human Body. And it looks like this. Okay. Now, this particular book is more of the psychological outlook on it. And it basically is compared to mental illness, much in the same way as, well, schizophrenia. Paranoid schizophrenia is one of the major ones. Today in occultism, we actually see where a lot of the mentally ill is connected to the occult. They're attracted to it. Could be a coincidence, or there may be a link. Who knows? But the one thing we do know is that there are different degrees of manifestation. It starts with a whisper, the invitation. It starts with the manifestation of whispers, goes into physical movement or partial takeovers, and then finally the full-on takeover of the persona. These are something that's very interesting. But like I said, worldwide, there is numerous outlooks of possession, voluntary and involuntary. It's the involuntary ones that become the issue because the person or practitioner that is not well versed has opened themselves up and they were not mentally or emotionally prepared for that spirit to fully manifest itself. Now, voodooism is something that is very, very interesting because of the fact that when they channel a Loa, which is kind of like dealing with a demigod compared to a god, one of those half type gods or the intermediary, deities. These individuals deal with it on a partial manifestation. They get themselves worked up into such a frenzy that they constantly believe that they've been touched by a Loa, unless they start speaking in unknown tongues. And no one has ever heard these tongues, these words coming from their mouth before. If you take somebody that is illiterate, someone who does not know, say for an example, cuneiform, Sanskrit, Aramaic, okay, and all of a sudden one day they just get up and they just start speaking in these languages. They've never studied it. They've never heard it. It's a sign of possession. Much like increased strength, hatred towards religious icons, relics. This is, the Christian viewpoint on this one. Okay, these are just symptoms that the Vatican has come up with. Now, I'm going to read to you some things that I've jotted down through my studies of just this particular topic. And I'm going to be giving you biblical scripture for you to go look up, and you can actually do the research yourself. But I wanted you to basically get a grasp of what possession is and the different levels of it and how it can occur. Now, 1 Kings, verse 16, chapter 16, verse 31, 18, verse 13, 19, verse 1, and 21, verses 23 and 25. 2 Kings, 9, verse 7, 10, verse 22, and 30, verse 33. Okay? Revelations, 19, verse 10, and chapter 2, verse 20. Okay? Now, these scriptures right here describe the manifestations of a more powerful being. Like, for an example, in Kings, you're dealing with things like Beelzebub. Okay? Some form of demonic or fallen angel type thing. Whereas in Revelations 19, you're dealing with the spirit of Satan. Okay? 2 verse 20 deals with the spirit of God. Okay? And this is the thing most Christians do not take into consideration. They're not separating the different levels of spiritual contact or the different layers of spiritual. Okay. For an example, those of you in, say, occultism, like, say, Satanism, theistic or spiritual or traditional Satanism, a lot of us pray to Satan. We pray to Satan and his kings, his gatekeepers, with a whole heart. We do it on a daily basis. At least some of us do. Even Christians, authors, have talked about how you pray to your God or your gods, and you get to a certain level, and then they take over from there. This is called intercessory prayer. This is where you pray to a certain point, and then they take over. It's called 50-50. You pray to this point, I'll pick it up from there. Now, this can be tied into 1 John 5:7 and 5:8, where there are three that bear witness in heaven, and then there's three that bear witness on earth. Now, the Necronomicon talks a little bit about the different levels of Deitas. Donald Tyson, in his work of the Necronomicon, talk a lot about the different types of beings, specifically in the 13 gates of the Necronomicon, where you have those of the celestial, those within the earth. Okay, and you're seeing where this is going here. But you've also got the time travelers, or the different dimensions. And this is something that you need to understand, is because of the fact that not everything is of a white lighter's perspective or a dark lighter's perspective. Now, when we look at, say, for an example, the 10 Commandments, it says no other gods. Number 1, no other idols, okay, or graven images. Taking the God's name in vain. How many of you have done this? I can tell you I've broken every single one of them, and I just don't care. Keeping the Sabbath day holy. Basically, Sunday, you don't work. That's the Sabbath day. I don't give a shit. I'd rather work. Especially in today's age. Honor both the father and the mother. Well, I can tell you that I've basically told my parents to go fuck themselves. My mother's side of the family, nothing but criminals. My father's side, well, betrayal. So that's stuff I don't need in my life. So it's like, see ya. And then don't kill. How many of you have actually cursed somebody? Okay? You placed a hex or a curse. I can tell you I've done it numerous times. And every single one of them deserved what they got. No adultery. Do not commit adultery. Well, I've gotten, in my own past, I've seduced married women. I've gotten them to commit adultery. Do not steal. I've stolen. Let's see. False witness against another. I've done that too. Don't covet thy neighbor's wife. Done that, been there. But anyways, you can see where all these things commit into what the Christians call sin, the 7 deadly sins. The fateful rules that will get you tossed out of the celestial realm and into hell. So this is where we're getting into celestial or heaven versus hell. What will get you to go to hell type thing. And then you have the 4 manifestations: temptation, demonic influential oppression, demonic oppression, and demonic possession or diabolic possession. Okay? Then you have rotting flesh, sulfur smells, chemical smells, cologne and perfume smells. Okay, these are the type of things that are symptoms of some form of demonic possession, be it around an object or it's in a state of spiritual being within yourself, or it's connected to you. But then we can go into other aspects of possession, such as 1 Samuel 16, chapter 16, verses 14 through 16. David and Saul. Okay. Now it was said because of the fact that Saul waged war for over 40 years, and he kept going to the witch of Endor to get information. Okay, and you'll see where this comes into play in a little bit here. David, or King David, Saul's successor, played a harp, and it brought out a manifestation. Luke chapter 8, verse 30. Legion. Okay, a man infested with a legion of demons. Chapter 9, verses 38 through 43. The epilepsy in a boy. Okay, remember when I said mental illness plays a part in some cases. Chapter 11, verse 14. The mute man, aka Beelzebub. Okay, basically making him mute and dumb, so to speak. Chapter 13, verses 10 through 13. The crippled woman. Matthews, chapter 15, 21 through 28. Faith makes worthy to be exercised. For an example, remember when I said it was about psychology? How today psychology plays that huge role in understanding the psyche. On one hand, you have to discern, is it spiritual? On the other hand, is it psychological? I can tell you that there's a woman that she believed so heartily that she was being possessed, or she had a partial possession, when all it was her just looking up at an angle while she was holding a cell phone. I mean, anybody could do this and make it an extorted face, be it a smirk, perhaps the evil eye. Okay, even Aleister Crowley could do that. So you see, it plays a part. So when we get into possession and we get into the different manifestations of it, you have to tell the signs. You have to understand the psychology of it. And what a lot of individuals don't understand is that for hundreds of years, the only ones who were literate, could read and write, were the church and those of royal standing. The populace didn't have access to these books, and if they did, it was very, very rare. And these individuals were accused of being witches, warlocks, sorcerers, through the blasphemies. And I'm going to get into that as well. So, anyways, the types, according to the church, a lot of the manifestations can be surrounded by delving into divination, such as the Ouija board, tarot card readings, palmistry, stuff like that. You open yourself up to demonic influence. Practicing witchcraft opens yourself up because you're aligning yourself with the elements. Necromancy, you're dealing with spirits. You're dealing with the manifestation of blood sorcery and spiritual summonings. Okay, working spells, doing spellcraft, such as bending the world through manipulation of energies, the currents around you, not only around you but within you, to help benefit your life and that of your clients. And then you have the fifth, which is the utilization of curses. Okay, cursing is something that we've all done in one form or another. Okay, what's interesting to note here is that you can sit there and swear up one side and down the other. Fuck this, fuck that. That's a style of cursing. It's colorful language. You can look at your mother or your father when you get pissed off and say, "I wish you'd die," you know, and that's a type of cursing. You can look at somebody and say, you know, "I curse you." Okay, it's small, it's quick, it's direct, and it's directly to the point. You just curse somebody, especially if you spit on them. This gypsies were known for doing stuff like that. They would look right at you, spit at you, and then speak some verse, and they and you would be cursed because you believe that you were cursed. So on a level, it's also psychological. A few years back, I had a young lady I took underneath my wing as my adoptive daughter. She wasn't really into it. She always made excuses, but one day I was extremely pissed off, had a hell of a bad day, and she made the mistake of dragging me into an argument that she was having with somebody in her own area. So I ended up doing the Lucifer's touch. All I did was typed it out. The guy thought he was cursed, and he was dead within 12 hours. Because the next morning she was freaking out because the guy was found dead in his home, which was literally down the street from her. But this is what I'm talking about. Through divination, you can move your psychosis, your ka, your your mind, okay, through the third eye, the spiritual. Go into astral travel, which is part of witchcraft, which is part of necromancy, which is part of divination, okay? And you can actually go out into the spirit world, and this actually, according to some practitioners of 30 plus years, such as Sorceress Gliestro, is you enter the land of the dead. And it basically, if they get wind that you're still living, they will attack you. This plays a part in the daemon mythology, okay? The harmful or the baneful versus the beneficial. Yes, you can get insight. Yes, you can get knowledge of past, present, and future events by doing this. So in essence, you are performing a state of possession. And as I said, this one woman, she basically took a photo of herself, in a state where it looked like she just had a seizure. Or she was trying to crap her pants, who knows. But it was kind of humorous. But anyways, it's very, very interesting to note that there's so many different aspects. And when we talk about possession, the good versus the evil, the voluntary versus the involuntary, okay, Christians will believe that when they get possessed by the Holy Spirit, it is voluntary. They're opening themselves up to it. But yet, when anybody from a different religion, such as Satanism or Voodooism, Hoodooism, Santeria, Palo Mayombe, Quimbanda, Umbanda, Druidism, whatever, ends up doing this, it's considered demonic. Okay? And this is something that I wanted you to understand. It was a quick video for you to realize that there's more than one view of it, that there is more than one aspect or level to the manifestations of it. When we do possessions or bringing forth a spirit, there are two ways to do it. Back in the 10th century or the late Dark Ages, necromancy was used to bring forth a spirit through the triangle of evocation. The practitioner would stand inside the circle of empowerment. They would evoke them or invoke them into and channel them directly into that triangle. Whereas today, someone such as a black magician will bring them directly into themselves. Even voodoo priests. You go underneath YouTube and you type in possessions, or you type in, say for an example, voodooism, and you watch some of those videos, you'll see the difference between the crowd or the herd conformity and what's going on within a single individual. The spirits can align themselves with an individual, they can enter an individual if they are open to it. If a spirit tries to take you over in a involuntary manner, that being can be ostracized, expelled quite easily. Just utilize salt. It wards them off. And if they're evil spirits, or what is classified as evil spirits, you could use gopher dust. Same exact thing. It's hoodooism. And hoodooism is one of the most powerful out there, just like voodooism, Satanism, demonic sorceries, witchcraft, necromancy. You know, the Munich manuscripts talks a lot about spiritual manifestations, much in the same way as the 6th and 7th books of Moses. Even the 8th book of Moses speaks on black magic, manifestations thereof. I would recommend that you check out those as well. But as I said, I just wanted to do a quick little video on this because I'm also getting ready for work. So, and I'm going to be leaving here shortly. So I got to go get a bite to eat. Probably stop into my altar room for a little bit before I take off and get into the right frame of mind. But that's just a little bit of information, as I said, on possession. But keep in mind that possession is not just something that happens within the body. There's also things such as accursed objects, locations. You know, violent deaths are a breeding ground for that. Take Fort Knox, Gettysburg. You know, there's been lots of reports around there. You know, that prison on you know, the Rock type prison. It's out there in San Francisco Bay. A lot of deaths took place there. And a lot of haunted mansions or haunted places, locations. This is where a lot of violence took place. And it's because of the blood on the ground. It is what occurred. All that psychic energy has placed that curse, that possessed location with a spirit. It's tied that spirit to that location because they're not ready to move on. They're not aware that they can move on. And it becomes a ghostly located haunting. Sometimes when people die, it's just, or animals, they don't realize they're dead. They just need to be guided. That's where the Reapers come in. But there's a lot to it. And most of it surrounds the dark arts, such as necromancy, witchcraft, spells, and curses. So, really get into history, really get into mythology, get into the various different works. I do recommend Russell Hope to you, and Robbins. I do recommend Rosemary Ellen Gully's work to you. You can even Google this stuff on Google, you know, online, and learn. One of the best ways to do it is do it hands-on. You know, begin doing evocations, rituals, summonings. You know, choose a being that relates to you. You know, utilize harmonics, utilize smelly herbs such as herbalism, alchemy. You know, some are tied into metals, others are tied into herbs. You know, and really get into it. You know, if you really want to understand fully, the best way to do it is to manifest yourself. And another good book is called The Mechanics of Demonolatry, and it's by H.P. Haggart. I guess you could say she's more like the Mother Teresa of the modern age. she ended up dealing, from what I understand from her works, is she got into dealing with a Ouija board one night and got partially possessed. And it scared her so much that she went Catholic. Now, what can I say? The dark arts are not for everybody. Most people can't handle it, which is why they'd rather live their lives like sheep. But anyways, that's just a little backdrop on possession and the various different manifestations of it. Hope it's been intellectual. Hope it's been um, enlightening. If you have any questions, hit me up. If I have the answers, I'll give it to you. I'll even guide you. And until next time, this Dark Sorcerer is out. Enjoy.